Hello, everybody. This is M from the editing table. I just wanted to give a quick heads up that this recording was from a couple of months ago. You might hear some references that have come to pass, such as I know Gino mentions that we're playing Mass Effect, which is thankfully not the case anymore. Just wanted to let you know, because usually we put these out a lot quicker, but we had a whole bunch of stuff going on in December. So it's coming out now for continuity's sake. So thank you for your patience and enjoy the show.
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up. Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today it's more Final Four-stasy. We have finished Final Fantasy IV. We will discuss it. We will rank it. We will cover everything from the beginning of the Underworld to the end of the game. And I am joined, as always, to discuss all things Final Fantasy by Chris ZombiePie Redacted. How are you doing, ZP?
When I put my pinky finger into my ear all the way up to the first knuckle, my eyes start twitching. Is that normal?
We are also joined, as always, by one Jeff Rud. How are you doing, Jeff? How's Canada?
It's. I was told that this country snows every once in a while, and I'm gonna say so far shenanigans. There's snow on the mountain ranges around me, but none down here, which is it's not that surprising. But I'm disappointed, just disappointed.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry that you're disappointed in Canada. I've been disappointed in Canada for a long time.
There's been a lot of people disappointed around here.
All right, so before we discuss Final Fantasy IV, our normal plugs, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment section, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which would get you access to our Discord. There's also the OG Soncast tier, which gets you access to our anime show, the OG Soncast, starring one Chris ZombiePie Redacted and Arbitrary Water, Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted, and Pete from the main show. So that's a cool thing you can do.
Special plug about that.
Yes.
We just recently held a watch party for this show that we will be talking about next. If there's any interest for us doing watch parties related to the OG Soncast, we're totally open-minded with it. Unfortunately, sometimes it shows with multiple episodes, but if you've got suggestions about setting up, we had this discussion during it of maybe doing this once a month with some sort of dubious OVA with 90s, let's say, vibes. Totally down. Reach out to me. Drop a comment, yada yada, so.
And we are currently playing Mass Effect Andromeda because we hit our latest subscriber goal. So you can affect the outcome of this show and its direction by subscribing. So do so. Okay, are you two going to disrupt this with food?
Yes.
Each of you? Okay, both of you? Who?
Both.
Just one. Both? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I'm going to let you go first because I feel like ZP will probably unsteady us more.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna upset your tum-tum. So yeah, my continued wandering into they call them convenience stores up here, very fancy, for various Canadian candies. I'm holding in my hand a varietal Kit Kat that I have never seen. This is a Nestle's Kit Kat chunky drumstick flavor. So
what?
We have on the label a picture of a drumstick ice cream treat.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps you're familiar with the drumstick variety of ice cream treat. So I'm opening this. It's kind of a big cat bar, as you know, in the States. I've got 3 segments on this that are notched, which is a weird number. I have cracked open a segment. I see some wafer, some kind of nougat around the wafer, I think, going in. No.
Gino, when are you going to join us?
No?
Food reviews.
This is... Okay, so the thing about drumsticks and all those cheap ice cream treats is it's not ice cream. it's like dairy product in there. And this kind of captures the flavor of that. There's not a lot of wafer in here. The thing about a Big Cat that I like is it's like a huge chunk of wafer surrounded in chocolate. And this is like 2 layers of wafer with a bunch of like white, somewhere between sort of like shelf stable frosting and nougat with a very weird neutral flavor to it. It's texturally really palm oily. Yeah, this ain't great. That's like a 2.5.
Is this literally this dish called a baked cat?
Big Cat.
No, a Big Cat.
Oh.
Yeah, like the Kit Kat Big Cat bars. You know, like it's
Okay.
It's about the profile of a Snickers bar.
I was like, oh, we're eating animals.
I mean, look, man, I eat a lot of animal parts, but this ain't one of them.
So this is not a great candy, then, Jeff. We're gonna say
I would not recommend. This goes below the Coffee Crisp pumpkin spice latte seasonal varietal candy bar for sure.
That's pretty bad.
That's it. I'm done.
ZP, did you, in the time Jeff was eating a thing, get the thing you were supposed to eat so you don't have to get up and find it now?
Yeah.
Hey!
Gino, I got something that you would approve of because I think that you like these foods. So I decided it's been, the holiday season. It's time for me to eat something that's marginally healthy. So I saw these in Costco.
Ooh.
They are called sweet potato sticks, organic by Snack Yard. No sugar added, vegan, only one ingredient. Just 100% steamed sweet potatoes in the form of chewy sticks. Have you not seen these?
Sticks of sweet potato? No, I haven't seen that before.
All right, it's in a plastic bag. Oh, fuck. They're like goddamn candy sticks, but sweet potato. Ew. What the fuck?
Okay, before you put it in your mouth, are you holding this with your hands?
Ugh.
Are you holding the sweet potato? Is there a wrapper around the sweet potato?
No,
or are you holding it?
It's just rip it out of the bag, and then it's just sticky fucking sweet potato sticks.
Okay, I was going to ask, is the sweet potato wet?
It is. It's moist. Good. It's sticky. My fucking fingers are gross.
I don't.
Ugh.
Put it in your mouth.
To do with this.
Put it in your mouth.
God. Okay.
Okay, Jeff. How often do you eat sweet potatoes?
Not infrequently. They're pretty big up here. I don't know if they just grow well, but like half the vegetarian stuff you find on the island's like some sort of sweet potato based thing.
Okay.
I'm not against sweet potato, but it's got.
That sounds like a not great presentation of sweet potato, based on what you said.
Yeah, they didn't put marshmallow on it. I don't think
they didn't put any seasoning.
I mean, like
they're
anything.
in weird, chewy. Like they have the texture of like a gummy candy.
Yeah,
we gotta. Yeah, no, we. Yeah, that's in the bin.
Fuck that.
Again,
the sweet potato.
Nothing wrong with sweet potato. Something wrong with what you got.
No.
Eat the sweet potato.
Like it comes in a pretty big bag. Ugh.
So you're just reaching into a big bag and there's just loose slices of sweet potato in there?
Yes. I don't
like that one bit.
Ugh, what the fuck, dude?
That sounds exceptionally poor.
So I have
sticky. What the
which is worse of the things you've eaten before? The salmon skins, fish skins, or the sweet potato, the loose sweet potatoes?
The salmon skins were nigh unedible, and they looked like a desiccated corpse.
Yes.
So definitely this. I mean, not this. The salmon skins. I don't know what is the right way to eat a sweet potato. It's probably sweet potato fries. I like those.
Fries are baked.
Roast them to hell. Just like almost charred on the outside. A lot of salt.
There's a burger place where you can sub your sweet potatoes for sweet potato tater tots, and those are quite good because the shreddedness of the sweet potatoes, they can actually get reasonably crispy. I've just come to terms with, due to the high sugar content, you can't make sweet potatoes as crispy as French fries.
You definitely can. And I will say I enjoy sweet potatoes with marshmallows. That is definitely a good treat. But okay, so how many?
That's a two. That's a two. Yeah.
Okay. DP filling his house with number twos.
Why does it taste like it's like chewy like a fucking like here's what it sounds like just
I think he's put a picture of it in the food channel. He has.
Uh-huh.
I don't like. Oh no,
That's what it looks like.
that's
Ugh.
ominous looking. I don't like that.
And you're a vegetable person.
No, I eat. Yeah, I'm vegetarian, and I would not have that. That
Oh,
looks bad. Vegans, man, what are you gonna do?
God, what the fuck?
all
Like,
right.
you didn't even season it.
That's just white people. Yeah, like they're like throw like literally pinch of salt on there, improved like 50%. That becomes
Well,
like
Put some soy sauce on that
enters edible.
motherfucker.
Yeah,
You can do that, ZP, and then get back to us and say if that improved your experience.
No, I don't want to eat these anymore.
Just go ahead, open the bag up, shake some salt and some pepper into it, close the bag, then shake the bag up, and then you'll know
that's
if
how I
it's
make
better.
salad.
What?
we have to move on.
Wait, no.
It's
What I
time.
do is I chop up the lettuce. I put up all the vegetables that I also want in my salad. I put it in a Ziploc bag, put it like a dollop of dressing, shake it up in the bag, and I eat out of the Ziploc bag. That's how I make salad.
We're out of time. Moving on, folks.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Next up, Final Fantasy IV, the game that we came here to. You just put it in a Ziploc bag and you shake. God damn. Okay.
Don't you remember like those shakers, the salad
fourth-
shakers for lunch?
The fourth Final Fantasy game, starring Cecil and your favorite friends.
All the
When
stars are here.
we left
Kids
them,
from the '90s know what the fuck I'm talking about.
when last we left them, they had gone to the center of the earth, or to the underworld, to defeat Golbez. Their airship blew up because it couldn't go underground so well, and they met dwarves. They say rally ho or lally ho, depending on your translation.
Where's my fucking handset?
And the dwarves, God, why do we do that? The dwarves have crystals too.
They do.
Golbez needs to get 4 more crystals, but he got some of them off screen. And you don't get to know about how he got those ones. So there's 2 left that he needs to get. One of them is in the dwarves' castle, and you're going to help protect it. So they let you go into the room with the crystal, and wouldn't you know it, there's a doll that's possessed, and it's going to steal the crystal. And you have to fight it. Jeff, how did you find that? How did you find that experience of fighting the dolls?
The doll fight's neat. Like to sort of condense pretty much what we're going to talk about the rest of this episode. This game is punctuated by like some of the first actually clever gimmick boss fights in the series.
Yep.
So this is yet another gimmicked boss fight. It is not my favorite one of the bunch. But yeah, it is yet another one of the fun boss fights in this game. I'm actually trying to sit here remember what the doll gimmick is. Because it transforms, right? It's being
There's Kalkas and Brinnas, and then if you don't kill them, there's 6 in at least the DS version. There's 6 of them, 3 of each, and then if you don't kill them all in time, they fuse together to become Kalbrenna, this big doll. If you kill them all in time, they don't go to the second phase. So it's cool. It's like hey, kill all these multiple enemies, and you have Yang, so you can do kick and all that stuff. And then if you don't win in time, it becomes kill this one big thing. Good gimmick.
Yeah, I found that my like the doctor stuff, like this is when I think that the game's preferences for certain characters in terms of like their utility in combat when they are available to you is especially pronounced. For example, Rydia's summons, especially Titan, for almost all of the middle game, what Rydia was doing was summoning Titan twice, and then I just have everyone else do an all-out attack. And then that usually was able to like get me past almost virtually every single boss. It is kind of interesting that due to the era in which this game operated, having characters that are in like the 4 digits, and then you have this character that's like hovering around 600 to 700. In this case, that character shall go unnamed. But yeah, it's fun. It's cool. I think the look of this level is pretty neat. We've been working in a pseudo fantasy like environment, and then you get to the Tower of Babel, and it's like you start to see what would later get reinterpreted and even done. I think I'm safe to say this, done a little bit better in Final Fantasy VI in terms of like the industrial look of like the ways in which industry manifest in this fantasy realm. In terms of like the look of the Tower of Babel. And then obviously like this level also has a couple of like secret areas where they're starting to like, you don't necessarily need to follow the actual path that the game is presenting to you.
I mean, this is where Rhea comes back. I think we didn't really say, like, you beat Calbrenna, and then you get another gimmick fight with Golbez and Shadow Dragon. Rhea jumps into the fight. Golbez in this battle, it's another gimmick battle where he changes his elemental vulnerabilities. He's weak to one element and absorbs everything else. And so this is a battle where you want to use Libra and figure out what his weakness is, then, blast that weakness with summons. You only have to do that like 2 or 3 times, and then he dies. I found out the hard way the first time I did this battle that you have to use Libra to figure out his elemental weaknesses, it was not because every battle up until this point with Golbez had been scripted, either a scripted loss or a scripted win, and I was like, oh, it's another one, and then whoops, because he kept absorbing everything, so I didn't realize that it was a barrier shift sort of fight. I thought it was a scripted loss. And then I died and was like, and had to do the Calbrenna fight again. And I was like, oh no, nope, that was just me being dumb. It's just a barrier shift battle.
I think that the actual boss, like in that like Tower of Babel sequence that I actually had a hard time was Rubicante, because he just rotates through like Firaga, Scorch, and Scorch just is a very particularly dangerous spell because when you get Rhea, she's like your lowest HP character, and she is oftentimes the crutch of she's actually going to end up doing the most amount of damage, especially in boss battles. If there is something that I think is a bit of a, the unintended consequence of this, like you really do, Rhea is like a very clear case of the character that you literally just have in the back row for the entirety of the dungeon, and you just smoke them if you got them, only during the boss battle, though, because her stuff is high cost. It's not exactly super easy to replenish her, and you're really just saving her for the boss. So you oftentimes don't actually see some of her cool shit.
Yeah, she is one of the most glass cannons in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And but man, she does blow things up.
Yeah, it's a hell of a cannon, and it's quite the glass too. But spoilers, she remains this way all the way to the bitter end of this game too.
Yep, she does hit very hard. So the Tower of Babel, you have to go there. It's another section. You fight, as you said, Rubicante. There's another fun gimmick boss battle with Dr. Luge and Barnabas.
Yeah, that's the boss that I was mentioning earlier, where this is when I really feel like, even though she is a glass cannon, she is, like, Dr. Lugage is incredibly simple when you realize, if you clear out the field early enough, you can just, like, this is not very easy.
Yes. And then you get the Barnabas Z battle. So it's one gimmick battle where Dr. Luge is like telling Barnabas, this giant Frankenstein's monster, to attack you, and then it'll attack him, and it's almost like a slapstick boss battle.
Yeah.
And then he transforms, and when he transforms, his gimmick is he makes everyone basically there isn't zombie status, but it's basically zombie status. So healing damages you, and you can't revive. But Jeff, what's the gimmick for that battle?
Let's see.
I kind of know.
It's been a little while.
So if you actually, it depends on. So in the Dr. Lugage battle, like the entire battle's second phase completely changes depending on who you defeat first. So if you defeat Balnab first, like Balnab Z will show up, and you can, you have to just defeat a more powerful Lugaborg at one point. If you defeat Dr. Lugabe first, Balnab will blow himself up and probably kill one member of your party, and then the Luga Borg will show up.
The gimmick is he's a zombie, so if you just throw an elixir at him, he dies.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so, like, again,
Fight sucks if you don't do that.
Crystallizing certain tropes, let's say, that have since been codified as almost Final Fantasy law. Quick thing.
There needs to be a zombie battle, and you need to kill them with an elixir.
Yeah.
Every game.
It's one of the more effective tropes in the series in terms of gameplay gimmicks. Quick thing, though. The Tower of Babel is basically broken into two parts. The first phase culminates with Dr. Lugabe. And this is something that I forgot, and then I had to restore my save to do that battle again. If you forget to de-equip people who leave your party before they leave your party, you screw yourself, because Yang leaves, and he leaves forever, and you lose everything that he carries on him. Now, admittedly, this is not the only Final Fantasy game. Like, all the way up until 7, this was a problem. Even in 8 and 9, this could be a problem, where party members just fuck off, or you split up the party, and transferring things over now becomes this muddled, kind of confusing mess. It still sucks. And it was like, shit, I forgot about this part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, thankfully, at least the weapons he doesn't share with anyone else. It's just a few pieces of armor that he would take.
Even then, you should get rid of his weapons so that you can sell them, because money can be, at certain points, a problem.
Sure.
A certain ninja can use some of his gear, too.
Yep.
But, like, by the time, like, look, it sort of loses utility at a certain point.
For sure.
Nothing he has is that great, but yeah, the flip all of it to have some dosh, especially at that point in the game, would be more useful. And yeah, not available to you if you don't know.
So at this point, Sid fixes up an airship. You steal an airship, so that you can go back to visit the Tower of Babel on the surface.
Golbaz also tries to kill you, and then Sid saves you with the airship.
Sid saves you with the airship.
A cool sequence.
It is. Sid saves you with the airship. You need to go to the surface. Then Sid is like, they're on us. I'm going to jump out of this airship with a bomb and close the door behind you. So he does that. He jumps out of the airship with a bomb, and Yang's definitely dead, and Sid is definitely dead. You fly away. You then can go to Elbon, which is the land of ninjas. You find a cave, and it, wouldn't you know it, leads to the foot of the Tower of Babel from the surface. You work your way down. You find out that the evil Rubicante, the fourth fiend, he's destroyed the ninja people. You then have to fight your way down, or I guess this is down, right? You're fighting your way down back to kind of where you were before in the Tower of Babel.
That sounds right.
And Rubicante makes you fight Edge's parents, who've been turned into monsters.
Yeah, the king and queen of Eblon.
Yep, that's messed up of him. Then you fight Rubicante, who's got a weakness to ice, but only when his shields are open. When his cloak is closed, he absorbs ice, which is an annoying gimmick, especially if you're like timing up summons, because there's a lag between when you input the attack and when it actually fires off. So sometimes he can switch his vulnerabilities in between the time when you input the attack and when it happens, which can be annoying. But yeah, it's otherwise a pretty straightforward battle, except for his constant spamming of AoE attacks, which
Scorcher Glare. Scorcher Glare, depending on which version of your game you're playing.
Yeah,
and that transitions us to the Crystal Room, which is a cool set piece.
What happens?
Well, when you try to take the crystal, you just fall into a trap.
Yep, trapdoor. Fall back down to the underworld. And oh dang, we're trapped in the underworld. There's no way. Our airship doesn't work in the underworld. We don't have the one that was on the surface. What are we going to do? Well, Jeff, Sid jumped off of an airship holding a bomb. So certainly he's dead, right?
Well, of course he'd be dead. That's the way that the world works, right? Like when you do a suicide attack, he wouldn't like just hypothetically speaking, be cured by a bunch of dwarves, and then given enough wherewithal to build you another airship in a cave underground, right?
Yeah, so
Right?
Sid's alive, and he fixes your airship so that you can
Oh shit!
unplug.
Really?
Yeah, so that you can
Yeah.
unplug the hole that he made when he jumped out of the airship with a bomb. I think we can probably address this now. Every character who quote unquote dies and makes a heroic sacrifice in this game does not stay dead, except for Tellah. He's the only character that actually stays dead.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. I mean, this is like a weird fantasy thing, so yeah, it's fine.
I just found it very like for a game that goes to and then this character made a heroic sacrifice so often. Like it's its move for most of the game is just having people heroically sacrifice themselves. And you can find Yang once you get the new airship chilling in a cave, being nursed back to health by fairies. You can find Sid just chilling in a bed. Palom and Porum get unpetrified later. Edward gets, I don't know, he sleeps in a bed and he's fine. Fusoya leaves your party and then he just leaves your party. So I just found mistakes. They are lowering.
I'm gonna completely push back. Of all the Final Fantasy games, this feels like it's pulling from traditional Chinese and Japanese scripture, especially the great Chinese novels like Journey to the West and like The Water Margin or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, where, yes, very literally, characters jump into scene, and then you think that they die, and then they come back, Deus Ex Machina way. There's a very Chinese opera, Beijing or Peking opera style to this storytelling, which I actually think that it makes it feel more quintessentially Japanese than the games that preceded it and even succeeded it. So I actually have no problem with what you're describing. I think that it's kind of just one of those weird isms that it feels like a game that, to be very honest, it feels kind of like it's going for a tweener or tweenish audience, and that is a reflection of it.
Sure. I mean, it can be going for a thing. I just don't. For me, it felt like the stakes lowered, right? You could only.
And again, I don't agree with that.
Okay. We don't have to agree. Jeff, where do you come down on it?
I mean, like a negotiated middle between the two. Like it is a trope. It is consider Final Fantasy, right? It is a series of people who are to be like real glib and like smooth over a lot of like actual complication from Japan, who are interested in sort of like Western media, right? They have a concept of sort of like Western fantasy tropes, knights and fucking princesses and all this sort of shit, right? So it is sort of a melding of these two fantasy milieus, right? So is it kind of ridiculous that you take, Parum and Porum, these two kids who like turn themselves into statues voluntarily, and then sort of like negate that later in the game when they just show up and they're like, haha, we're still irritating kids. Yeah, sure, kinda. I don't think that it necessarily negates the actual cool thing it did, which I think is more the like reconciliation, like Cecil's journey arc through the game.
Mm-hmm.
And such that it did, it's like it's also a video game for babies. Like it's okay. Like it's kind of a cartoon. Like this isn't high literature.
This is
a
Shonen Jump thing. Like this is a Shonen Jump game.
100%. That's everything I just tried to say. You said it in a sentence.
Yeah, Krillin. They are wishing Krillin back, and boy, Krillin's back. People are going to sacrifice themselves, but then they'll get the Dragon Balls, and everyone will be okay again.
Yeah. So
I
yeah, it's a
also
little
do-
like and weird that they leave Tellah out of that, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I also
whatever.
do want to point out, Gino, this is also a moment where your version of the game actionably feels slightly superior. I think the only other one is when a certain character turns into a paladin, where I think the additional cutscenes and the voice acting actually lend more to the characters. Like Sid's whole like speech as a lot of this is happening. I think that stuff is great. I think that stuff is really good.
Yeah, the voice
Like,
acting in this game's good. For sure. DS version has good voice acting. And it adds a lot of weight to what otherwise would not have any weight. So at
anyways,
this point, you get a new airship. It flies over lava. You can explore the underground. There's a few side questy areas. You can go get Eidolons if you want to. You can find Yang sleeping. You got to go to the sealed cavern at some point, which is where there's the last crystal that Golbez definitely won't get. Fight a bunch of doors, and the final boss battle of this is the demon wall. How did y'all find that fight? Another iconic fight that they have brought back many, many times.
Well, this version of the demon wall is pretty. If you don't know how to deal with it, it's a real pain in the ass.
How do you deal with it? For those who don't
cast
know.
Berserk on Cecil and Edge, and maybe even Kane, and have Radia cast Virus or Bio. Otherwise, it's just going to spam the Crush spell on all of your party members randomly, mind you, and you can use items or spells to like revive a member if they fall. But yeah, it's just like everyone should be a Berserker, and Radia should just poison the wall.
It's just a damage race. Like the wall slowly advances on you until it gets adjacent to you, and then it starts killing dudes. So if you damage race it fast enough, it never does anything. But if you can't, then yes, it kills you. It's the purest damage race in this whole game, and I appreciated it. It's cute.
Yeah, it's a geared chat.
It's a good use of like the sprite, right? It becomes an evocative battle where they're moving the sprite closer and closer to you. It's the original Tonberry battle, basically, from later games in the series. Good use of tension. Dang it, wouldn't you know it, they got the crystal again. Kane brainwashes again, and so he steals the crystal. Then Sid wakes up again and puts a drill on your airship so you can go back to the surface again. Did either of you bother getting like the Sylph Summon or Excalibur or any of that?
I got all of them. I did usually the Eidolon quests when they opened up. So after you're done with the stuff with Kane's betrayal, which Kane betrays you more than once, which is always a little funnyism. But yeah, you can get the Odin. You can even do the Odin side quest around this point, and the first half of the Excalibur side quest, which you can see how the Excalibur side quest in this game later informed the state of Excalibur in every subsequent Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, it's almost always a side quest item or a side quest weapon.
Yeah, I got to the point where you're getting a drill put on your airship at about 19 and a half hours on the American SNES fan translated version of this game. My end game time was about 25 hours. So everything I did after that was basically end game mop up stuff, and then going to the other map in this game, the third one, I suppose. So yeah, I did basically everything. Except the actual worst possible grind shit that you could do, which we can talk about later, I guess. But got Odin, got Leviathan, got Asura, got went and visited Yang, got his silly fucking knife from his wife, got Odin, did all of it, got Excalibur, did all of that stuff. Gotta say, it not necessary to do all of that. Not even kinda.
I think. And I don't mean to speak with Gino. As someone who played both of these side by side, both the Pixel remaster next to the 3D remake, The 3D remake, by my estimates, adds anywhere between 10 to 15 hours. And the overall game and the impression that I was left with the game, even though I still truly do like some of those cutscenes and the quality of the voice acting, I think the overall game suffers. I'm not going to say considerably, but my overall enjoyment of Final Fantasy IV is diminished when you add an extra 10 to 15 hours to it.
I agree. I
by
don't
any
like.
means necessary.
I don't like what the 3D. That is the thing. Is like the pacing just is worse because the game is slower. With the 3D remake, unfortunately, and I don't know if the encounter rate is higher or if the game is just slower. But it feels
so
sluggish.
the reason why the encounters feel sluggish, and it's pretty easy to summarize, is every single time that we have a trash mob with like 6 to 7 to even upwards of 8 enemies, you're dealing with only like 2 to 4. And the HP on those enemies has been like doubled, and in some cases more than that. And plus, they get 2 attacks versus your 1 per party member. So anything that involves grinding is genuinely slower to compensate for the fact that they genuinely couldn't fit more polygons on the screen without causing the frame rate to drop to like 8 to 9 frames per second.
Yeah,
because
so
that's
like
the hardware they were working with.
so your version of the game. So the original version of the game, the all hitting abilities like summoning things with Rydia would just clear out the trash mob. Whereas
Absolutely.
my version of the game, I have to just keep wailing on these things because there's only 2 enemies.
Yeah, and oftentimes the AoE spells are not good. You are better off just concentrating your high 1 attack abilities until one of them goes down, and it's all or nothing, doing 1 at a time, which is not a great feeling. The other thing is, and we kind of pointed this out on the Discord, is there's other weird things about the 3D remake, especially as you move forward. Once you hit level 70, and I did hit level 70 in my mock playthrough, you really have to be careful about the augment system. You really have to be careful about the equipment that you're giving your characters, because status boosts and stat growths are determined by your equipment and the augments that you have put on each individual character from level 71 and upwards. So if you aren't maximizing the base stats based off of the equipments to those characters, you are effectively making them useless over time, which sucks.
Does
No bueno.
does suck. And I did find out at this point the augment system, like, you need to give augments to your characters who leave so that they give you better abilities. When they'll give you 1 ability by default, but you can get more if you load them up. So like the bad augments are really just supposed to be burned on those characters to exchange them for better augments. And I realized that by the time I got to Fusoya, like, I loaded him up with augments, and he gives you like the ability to cast all targeting spells with any spell. So any spell that Rydia has can hit everyone, all enemies, which is pretty powerful. He also has one called Phoenix, where if a character dies, they just revive every other downed character at the expense of all their MP, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
If you're going to get party wiped, they will unwipe everyone except themselves, which is pretty good. So yeah, the augment system, I think it's cool, but the fact that it impacts your leveling and your stats is kind of a bummer. I wish it just impacted how your character played. And it's only after level 70. It's like, why have this extra layer of silliness? I mean, you can kind of specialize your characters thanks to it, but it's not transparent. It's not especially transparent, and you kind of need to look it up.
I feel like that's the biggest problem with the 3D remake, is the way that it does make the game harder and different from OG and eventually the Pixel remaster version of 4. It is in no way, shape, or form being transparent about that. Just weird. But we've reached maybe the most iconic moment in all of Final Fantasy IV. You fly to Mysidia. It's a fun little trek there. And then you meet the Elder, who will
Mhm.
greet you. And what does the elder do?
He summons the lunar whale, so you can
A
go to the
dang
moon.
whale.
Even people who have never played Final Fantasy IV, I think people know the fact that, oh, right, that's the game where you ride a whale to the moon.
Yeah. Take the lunar whale, which is a ship, and it takes you to the moon. And this is the first time in a Final Fantasy game you go to the moon. But it will not be the last. It will not be the last.
No, not by a long shot.
I really appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun. You get a third map, the moon. The moon is interestingly laid out because you need to go through caves to get to Crystal Palace. You need to go to Bahamut is on the moon, so you can get the best Eidolon on the moon.
Let's linger on these tunnels briefly.
Yes.
This is where so everything up to this point happened for Jeff a little while ago, but this is all pretty fresh in my head. So you talked a little bit about the in the Discord. Check it out. You join this $3 with a blah 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 deep Patreon. About how the end of this game is a little rough. In your eyes. Our opinions can differ there, but the thing that this game had in common with 3 that kind of chapped my ass a little bit is what I think about is like the walk up, right? Like there's a final dungeon, you're gonna go there, like it's very like there's like not a lot left to go do in the world unless you just want to go grind for no particular reason. Okay, but to get to the final dungeon, it's not just park your ship and enter the dungeon. You have to park your ship on a specific, let's call it a mesa for argument's sake. Take, about 4 steps, go into a cave, get through this cave, wander across some terrain, enter another cave that's like, maybe 20 tiles long. Exit that and then walk over about 15 tiles, then enter the final dungeon. Then go through another room, then get onto a teleporter, and then that actually takes you into the final dungeon. Okay? Fucking why? Why?
Yeah.
Why not just let me park my ship right in front of that castle? It makes do something to the map that makes plot sense. That's like, oh, make a monster appear that knocks over some of the rocks. It's your fiction. You can do anything. There's literally no rules.
And speaking of, we did skip. There's a giant, the giant of Babel. You have to go inside of a giant and beat it up.
Incidentally, yeah, there is.
You have a boss rush where you fight the 4 fiends. I like that each of the levels is like the giant's stomach, the giant's neck, that's fun. I like fighting the 4 fiends again. It's just they're strong. The ones you killed earlier are strong enough that they don't just instantly die, but they have the same gimmicks. You fight the CPU, which is a pretty cool enemy.
It's got some like thematic. There's an offense and a defense node, and you've got to sort of take them out in a decent order. And it's neat.
It's a battle where you want to take out the attack node and then just go after the main body, because if you take out the healing node, then the CPU will attack you. But if you just leave it with the healing node, it'll just sit there and heal, and it won't revive the attack node, which I like. That's a fun little gimmick boss battle. Like, all these late battles are very gimmicky and fun. Yeah. And then you go to the final dungeon.
But no. There's something that I want to revisit with Jeff. With a lot of what you described with like the gimmicky like placement of things and not being able to do what you think is the most efficacious path, it kind of reminded me of when we played Final Fantasy III. And
that's exactly what I was going to get to.
There was the sequence where you get the airship and you have to park it in front of the wall, but not next to the tower.
Yep.
Which the wall itself was like 2 dungeons. And it's like, why? You're subjecting me to 2 extra steps that I don't need to, and I am going to eventually need to make the walk of shame. I don't know how many times you guys did when you did the lunar level in this one, but like it's the same bummer feeling of fuck, I gotta go rest in the bed in the airship because I didn't make it this time, unless I've really been power leveling. which you may not have done.
Yeah, like let's say hypothetically I was playing this game in one window and looking at retroachievements.org in another window. So I had a perverse incentive to get all of the stuff out of the lunar subterranean dungeon as I went along there. If you want to do that and you've got a relatively full inventory, the most efficacious way to go about that is basically max out your inventory, swapping good gear out for bad, and then Walk of Shame or teleport spell, and then do the other actual Walk of Shame, which is, again, to wit, across the terrain, through the tunnel, across the other terrain, through the tunnel, up the mesa, back into the ship, and then save, talk to the fat chocobo, dump stuff off, so you have inventory room to pick up more stuff, blah, 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 blah. I think I did that like 3 or 4 times. Which was a good enough excuse to incidentally grind, I guess, along the way. But yeah, like that's also not a lot of save options in there. There's at least one, there might be 2. But yeah, like 3, to wit, it's kind of a piece with the last little dungeon in Final Fantasy 3, where it's maybe a bit too long. Like I appreciate that it's a bit of a challenging area. It's not particularly hard in the way that Final Fantasy III's final dungeon is, which is kind of unrelenting. You can get away with just running away from everything because you don't need no money at that point in the game. So like, what have you got to lose? But yeah, it's a bit of a slog. And your fight, most of these chests are trapped. Behemoths are popping out. The fights become up to a point where you kind of just start snowballing over everything. Not particularly easy. They are costly. We're burning MP. There's not a good way to restore ethers. So, the actual solution is have a bunch of cottages and get to the one save point that I can think of. And then just kind of let that be your little base camp. But to get those cottages, you're having to return to Earth to buy a big stack of them if you don't have them on hand. So that bakes in sort of more fucking around. That said, I actually think the last dungeon of this game is all right compared to 3.
Yeah.
And compared to what came after,
or two.
And compared to what came after, I actually appreciate that's got a little bit of friction, because when I sit and think about 5's endgame, I can't remember it really at all. 6's dungeon is kind of got some gross little conveyor belt puzzles and crap in it that I didn't love, but at least was conceptually neat. 7, the Discord kind of has this conversation. 7, it's walking into a crater, it's a straight line. The third disc of 7 is this really weird thing, if you think about it, because it's mostly just a movie on a CD and an 8-minute piece of music. 8 has a monster dungeon. 9 is I just finished 10 the other day. Last couple hours of 10 are conceptually very cool, but the dungeon's kind of a fart. 12 straight line. 4 is actually, I think, one of the better last levels in the series.
Yeah, because it's got options.
I don't know if that speaks highly to the series, though.
Yeah, it's weird. I do like how that final dungeon in the Lunar Subterranea is. They very bluntly tell you, "Yo, that you're gonna need to do multiple trips. Be prepared for this."
In the way that a Shin Megami Tensei will make you sort of go on these little sorties to map a dungeon and learn your way around a little bit, just minus all of the mapping part, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess you could be mapping, but there's not a lot of point.
And most of the boss battles have, once again, an easy out. I know that we've been referring to them as gimmicks, but let's be honest, you've reached the end of the game. If you have the tool to wipe out a boss, I think that's a pretty good thing for RPGs to have, is if you've made a balanced party and treated each of your characters as being important resources to moving forward, you should have one person has the tools to make this go away real quick. I think we made this point, Jeff, on Off the Deep End when we were talking about Dragon Quest 1, but the philosophy for early RPGs in the 8 to all the way the 16-bit, and to a further extent, like even today, is it's not a matter of if you'll see the end, it's a matter of when. You put in the work, you will get to see the end. Yeah. And each of these characters has a tool which is specifically designed to obliterate one of the mini-bosses or one of the culminating bosses in this entire dungeon. And that's genuinely clever game design, to me, at very least.
Yeah. To be super blunt about it, like, Rydia just gets a win button if you've got Bahamut. Like, there is nothing that cannot be overcome in this game, bar the final boss, without the judicious application of 1 or 2 Bahamuts. And as long as you've got the juice to, like, generate MP, nothing else in this game matters anymore.
And I think that that's always been a recurring thing in the Final Fantasy franchise, short of, like, more modern examples. Like, you want to even extend this to, like, the early PS1 games. Like, 7's got Knights of the Round and 8's got Eden. You should have the tools to basically press button to make everything bad go away. Like, that's kind of been a Final Fantasyism.
Yeah, I think it's worth it to get Bahamut for that reason. Like, it makes the run to the bottom just so much easier. It makes it so much more tolerable. And 10 floors it's a lot of floors.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's long. And if you're trying to get all of the stuff out of there, it really pads the runtime quite a bit. And it's not worth it. Like, the weapons are good. Like, fighting the last couple, like, sort of, they're not even super bosses. They're just sort of like guardians of a couple swords. Like, I wouldn't even say they're, like, interesting in the challenges they present if you've got Bahamut, because you're just blasting them. You're just blamming them like a commissar. But then you get to the actual final boss of this game, and like, the swords kind of help. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, and the final boss, what'd y'all think of it?
It's an actionable, like, genuine. Well, when you get past, like, the cinematic part of it, where it's just, you know, Golbez and Fusoya, and then eventually
Zemus.
Yeah, Zemus one-shots your party with Cecil with just 1 HP regardless, and then the kids come back and then pray the death away. The actual part of the battle where it's like Zeromus and that sprite for his ultimate form, I feel like has kind of been spoiled. Like, that sprite where he's like that horrible abomination with, like, the blue eyes sticking out, and he's like this carnage almost. Until the internet ruined it and just repeated it all over the place. Like, it's actually kind of genuinely shocking to see him, like, get this infinite power and then, like, literally it mutates him to be this abomination, like this Eldritch abomination. Like, it's actually truly shocking. The actual mechanics of the battle, it's like, it's slightly harder if you... It's a hard battle. You can have Rosa cast Holy and heal with Kuraja when you need, and then, like, Rydia can cast Flare and Asura when needed. And if Edge has those shurikens, you just spam that shit until whatever you have is dead, and then that means you can just have Cecil and Kain pop all the elixirs you haven't been using up to this point.
And I really enjoy in the 3DS version, like, I gave Cecil target all so that he's the target of every physical attack that enemies do, and I gave him counter and HP plus 50%. So he just sat there and tanked all the damage, and it was great from anything physical.
I don't know, Jeff, what did you feel about the actual final boss battle I mean, it's a cool moment when, like, Fusoya, like, sacrifice, yada yada, like, that's a cool moment.
So something I failed to note that will contextualize this is I died 3 times in my time with this game. and 2 of them were on Odin. So I missed talking about this, so I'm going to bring this up now, going back in time. The SNES version of this game that I played specifically. So the Odin fight. The thing about the Odin fight is he will hit you with Zansuken or whatever the hell his big mean attack is, and you've just gotta get enough damage on him. Like it's even more of a like damage rush than the demon wall. And I was like, damn, I'm not getting it on this guy. I'm berserking. I'm doing all this stuff. And I was like, okay, what are people doing? What were people doing when they got this in like 1991? And the thing that people said online was take the battle speed down. And I was like, no way. Because this game, the SNES version has like battle speed adjustment between like 1 and 6, and I had it cranked all the way up because I was like, this game needs to move. We need to go. So I did. I slammed that all the way down to like, actually not even to 1. I put it on like 2, and that was enough. I was able to get enough attacks off in that time, which I feel like my little meters, such that they exist in this game, were going slower as well. But that's how I pulled that off, which is weird. Why did I bring that up? I brought that up because this is the another time that I died, was the first time I fought Zeromus. And I noticed kind of as I was going along, I was like, okay, we'll dump everything, right? So it's Bahamut, let's get the big guns out. Every time Rydia was attacking, he'd counter with bullshit. I was like, all right. Well, what if I just don't do that? So I just had Rydia basically defend or throw potions every turn.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of battles in the end game where the correct answer is don't do the thing that the enemy counters, and then just allow the characters that are less efficient to whittle them down because the counter is more dangerous than anything else the enemy does.
So yeah, stay ahead of that damage curve and don't trigger the messed up counter attack. And that was kind of it. Went down a treat. So like interesting in the sense that I had to think about it for a little bit. And in some sense, a fitting challenge. And it kind of took away one of your toys, the win button, and made you kind of work for it a little bit. But I wouldn't say it was like hard. And I wouldn't say it was like the most interesting thing in the world, but it looked cool. You know, this was one of the times in this game that they used some of the actual like parallax ability on the SNES in a way that was honestly a little disorienting, but cool. Yeah, it was all right.
And what'd you think of the ending?
Long. I'd be curious how much of the space on this cartridge was carved out to sort of have that sequence in it, because it's a lengthy little piece of music that's pretty much all bespoke to that. Go for it.
Out of curiosity, is this the first true Final Fantasy-esque epilogue in the series?
3 kind of had one.
3 kind of has one, but this feels like the first true Final Fantasy epilogue.
I mean, this is the first true Final Fantasy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's scaled up dramatically from what they did in 3, and feels very well realized, I guess is the word I would use. Like, you get little denouements for everybody. Like, it feels it is proud of itself. The people that put this game together know what they have done here very clearly. Like up to the point where like I've made a lot of like Beijing opera comparisons in the series over the years, but basically the last screenshot is everyone sort of taking a little bow. At least in the SNES version, I'm assuming y'all's are kind of similar. And I was like, that's a little on the nose there, I guess, but I don't know how you get around that, right? Like it's meant to be a little play, you know? So yeah, I found it to be neat. I liked pretty much everything about the way that this game ended.
I mean, it is the original Final Fantasy.
Yep.
In a lot of ways. Like this is the game that launched the franchise into being something more than a Dragon Quest imitator in some senses. Competitor.
More than a pretty good Nintendo game.
Yeah, this is the thing that did it. This game's well made. Ending's good. Final Dungeons, they got better later on in the series, I think, but it's fine. Like,
it feels that ending where it's just Cecil and Rosa's wedding just feels like a good moment to end it. It's one of the rare examples of a Final Fantasy game just Final Fantasy game in general where it ends on a positive note and the world's not fucked.
yeah, and until the after years. Unfortunately, they left it open-ended for the after years.
Hey, if we're not going to hold 10-2 against 10, we can't hold the after years against 4 because Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So,
I guess no dancing around it. It's ranking time, right?
it is. So let's go to the ranks. You could go to Bitly. If you want to see the ranks, you can go to bit.ly/deepfinal if you want to see the rankings. Our current rankings are as follows. First, and the best Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy VI, followed by 9, 10, 7, 8, 7 Remake, 5, 12, the trading card game, Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13, Stranger in Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals, the movie, Final Fantasy 3, Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, 10-2, 15, 13-2, Final Fantasy 7 Advent Children, the movie, Final Fantasy 7 The Kids Are Alright, a Turk's Side Story, which is a light novel, Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, there's another movie, Final Fantasy 7 On the Way to a Smile, another book, Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, another movie, Mobius Final Fantasy, A King's Tale Final Fantasy 15, Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 Last Order, Final Fantasy 7 The First Soldier, Final Fantasy 14 Hikari no Otosan, Dad of Light, which is a Japanese drama, Final Fantasy 5 Dear Friends, Final Fantasy 2, 11, World of Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, 10-2 Last Mission, Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, Final Fantasy 6 Special Tracks, which is an Arrange album, Final Fantasy Unlimited, which is an anime, and then dead last, Final Fantasy All the Bravest, which was a terrible mobile game. All right, so I think we need to start towards the top, for sure.
Yeah. So how do we feel against Opera Omnia?
I like this more than Opera Omnia.
Yep.
I like this more than 3.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than 3.
Look, man. This is in like the top. This is the good. This is the good stuff.
Yeah.
It's better than 3. It's better. It saddens me to say it's better than Legend of the Crystals.
I agree, and it also saddens me.
It's better than 1.
Yep, definitely better than 1. And I think the first discussion is it better than Stranger in Paradise?
Yes.
I think so. It's definitely better than Lightning Returns.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it better than the trading card game?
Yes.
Probably.
I don't think that trading card game gets made.
No.
This game isn't
That's
as good
true.
as it is. Which
Is
I
it
think
better
you can
than-
say about every game
How's the
above
support
this.
of the trading card game these days? Are they still doing new
Still
releases?
making stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So,
Okay.
Still got new cards, still well made.
You and the 5 people that are buying those cards are just living it up.
I just feel like that once again, the problem with that game when they first made it was poor advertising and word of mouth, and the problem with that game continues to be poor word of mouth and advertising. And yeah, they don't have some version of like Magic the Gathering Arena, which you have a podcast with a friend where you talk about all of your grievances with Magic the Gathering Arena, but at least it exists.
And they're a game company. This is a video game company, and they refuse to make a web client.
Who's doing worse by their card game, them or Wizards?
Oh, man.
Like, Wizards actually makes money?
Yeah. Wizards...
For all their faults.
Wizards might be stabbing their fattened cow over and over and over again, but...
And when in doubt, what's Wizards' go-to strategy for making more money on Magic? Just print more shit to exploit the Commander community.
Yes. Whereas, I don't know that Square Enix is aware that they're making a card game. I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone who just they got a line item in a budget one time, and they're just hoping no one ever notices. And it just keeps getting renewed and rubber stamped year after year.
It just says Staples.
Exactly. And it's like, and it's just enough to make 3 sets a year or 4 sets a year, and the Staples budget.
$15,000 in Staples, huh? I was like, yeah, just doing a lot of reporting. Oh, okay. Huh. All right.
So I think we could put it over the card game. 12.
Oh yeah, I think that
I will say this. I have a hard time putting it over 5 for me in my heart of hearts. But I don't have a hard time putting it over 12 because I would not replay 12 again. I don't think. I don't feel strongly about it. I would probably replay 4 before I replay 12 again. 5 kind of for me is my hard
so what's
ceiling
above
for me.
5 again?
7 remake.
I personally I love 5. I was just talking with ZP about this earlier. 5's pretty high on my personal like all-timer list, but honestly, everything above this line is. I think 5 is great. I don't want to take anything away from 5. I would put this above 5 personally.
Okay, so we've got a vote for above 5 ZP. Are we all cool with over 12?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I will say this. I can be entertained that it goes above 5, but I'll join Gino in saying I don't think it goes above 7 remake.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it above 5 or 7 remake.
What's above 7 remake?
8.
Yeah, I'm not putting it above 8 either.
Yeah, so that we're the decision now is it just above 5 or just below 5?
Shit.
What would you
5 is
do,
just
ZP?
so replayable.
No,
That's, like...
I think that I think that you know every trick in the book. Playing 5 as someone who actually remembers what it's like to play 5 vanilla and not know all of the tricks and mechanisms, there's actually a lot of grinding in that game just to see all of the hooks and like the coolness of the jobs. Like, there's actually a pretty good amount of grinding, and to have that amount of grinding with a fluffy story, which admittedly is a feel-good story, maybe one of the last comedic stories that the 8 and 16-bit era did, even into the PS1 era. There's some dark shit in 7, 8, and 9. I'm gonna stick with my guns. I say it goes above 5, but not by a lot. But it's not going above 7 remake.
Okay, so you're cool with it being above 5 then?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jeff, but I'm gonna join you in saying no to above 7 remake.
Okay, I can live with that. I mean, I just love 5.
It's the game that practically set this on track.
Yeah, to Jeff's point that he's made, the games above 4 do not exist without 4. Almost all of the games below 4 do not exist without 4. 5 did not even come out in America because it was until the PS1 era, because it was not considered essential. So I think
more to the point, because it was too different from 4.
Yes, exactly. It was too different from 4, so they didn't bother localizing it. I think that 5 is probably holds up more for replays, and I think it is impressive. But what 4 did at its time, I'm okay with giving it a 1 spot bump over where I would otherwise put it. That's fine for historical relevance. So Final Fantasy IV, you are now our 7th best Final Fantasy game. Congratulations. Which means the list is now 6, 9, 10, 7, 8, 7 remake, 5, 7 remake, 4, 5, 12, trading card game, Lightning Returns, Stranger Paradise, 1, Legend of the Crystals, 3, Dissidia Opera Omnia, 10-2, 15, 13-2, Advent Children, Kids Are Alright, Spirits Within, On the Way to a Smile, King's Glaive, Mobius Final Fantasy, A King's Tale Final Fantasy 15, Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 Last Order, Final Fantasy 7 First Soldier, Hikari no Otosan, Final Fantasy 5 Dear Friends, Final Fantasy 2, 11, World of Final Fantasy, Mystic Quest, 10-2 Last Mission, 13 Brave Exvius, Special Tracks, Unlimited, and All the Bravest. What a piece of shit you are. All right, and with that, whose turn is it to pick again?
I don't remember.
I don't either. It's you.
Oh, it's Jeff. Okay, cool.
It's one Jeffrey. Okay, Jeffrey, what are you picking?
Well,
I mean, why do you sound so scared when Jeff picks a thing? It's usually short and like inconsequential to our time commitments.
Sometimes it's painful, though.
When was the last time Jeff picked something that was painful? I don't.
Oh man, what was the last time you picked something? Did you pick the books, Jeff? Did you pick On the Way to a Smile?
Yeah, yes, I did actually.
Yeah, but I like recording those book podcasts with your friend. You know,
who picked Unlimited?
That might have been me.
I think it was Jeff.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Well, you see, what we've done something. We've played all the games that matter.
Yeah, like so, this is
yeah.
Except for 14.
Nope.
You want to keep me around? So there's a couple different weird avenues. Rather than elaborate on that point, I'm just going to put it this way: do you want to play something or do you want to experience something?
I want to experience something.
Yeah, usually, Jeff. To be very honest, I know that it's like, oh, I need a break from the game. Like your experiences have sometimes been some of the most memorable Final Fantasy things that we've done. So I want an experience by Jeff.
I like the experiences by Jeff.
So you've activated a trap card. Congratulations.
God.
So we are going to fuck around with more weird arranged soundtracks.
Okay.
Congratulations.
What?
So we're gonna do I'm gonna give you one all-time banger and then one cryptid. So we are going to talk about next the all-time banger, an absolute classic that I think is worth talking about because it's really good and interesting. Final Fantasy IV Celtic Moon. So this is an arranged soundtrack from around the time that Final Fantasy IV came out, done in Celtic style, with involved by Nobuo Uematsu. I think it's genuinely actually kind of neat. Well worth your time to listen to. And then the cryptid. I'm going to introduce the world, because I guarantee not a lot of other people have heard this album, to Final Fantasy III Yukyu no Kaze Densetsu, aka Final Fantasy III Legend of the Eternal Wind, an arrange album of Final Fantasy III music featuring a bunch of spoken word English narration.
What?
Okay, you're going to need to provide us links to both of these.
No problem.
Okay.
So specifically the thing to clarify, we have two other albums on our list. I distinguish between just a CD of music that has, music from the game, which is not particularly interesting because that's just in the game, and these arrange albums, which are, let's take some of these musics from Nobuo Uematsu, who's, good, and do weird shit with them. So on this list already, we have Dear Friends, which is a sort of acoustic, weird electronic mix of Final Fantasy V music, and Final Fantasy VI Special Tracks, which is some original music and some cut tracks from Final Fantasy VI. So again, they aren't just the soundtracks. These are also both not just the soundtracks, and they're both interesting. So, and Celtic Moon's actually just good.
Yeah. Speaking of music, I know that Gino has seen one. I'm wondering if Jeff, have you ever seen a live performance by Distant Worlds?
Yeah.
Okay, so
really
we've all seen that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the one I went to, Uematsu was sick, so he actually didn't go up on stage, but
yeah,
I think I've told this story before. I'll tell it briefly again. I actually didn't know they end all of them with One Winged Angel. So, they finished and then they kind of come back out and they're like, okay, oh, right, we need to do this one other thing. Okay, so when we point at you, you guys go, Sephiroth.
No, that guy does that for every
I
performance.
know, she did not know that was going to happen. So to her,
so
it was
like cool.
a delightful surprise.
Nice.
So, yeah, I can't wait to talk about Final Fantasy III's thing. It is one of the weirdest fucking things I have ever heard in my entire life.
Okay. Thank you. So say the names of the things we're listening to again. Say them again.
Final Fantasy IV, Celtic Moon. You won't be hard to find. Final Fantasy III. You will the Japanese title is Yukyu no Kaze Densetsu, or you can just search for Legend of the Eternal Wind, and it should come up. Yeah, there's something. Okay. The last one's something. The first one's just good. I don't know how else to put it. Celtic Moon's a wonderful thing.
Celtic music is just good in general. It's cool. And
it is.
Yeah, imagine music you've just been listening to for like 20 plus hours, but recorded kind of live and raw.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, we'll be listening to those two things and then discussing it on a podcast. Thank you, ZP.
I know that I usually say inappropriate things, but here
Thank
I
you, Jeff.
am.
Thank you, Jeff.
Nice. Yep. Cut him off.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, dear listener. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.